Okay. So yeah, being that my family, we are HQ players. So. All right, let's go. Here's a sample question. Pick the correct answer. Buzzer war. Everybody went blue except for one person. You're a unique individual. Good job. Oh, it's manual. Sorry. I usually set it to go by itself, and I didn't. Oh, what's my name? How many of you can get it right? Oh, again. That one person that walks alone. There we go. Who's a musician that plays clarinet and that other thing? Oh, you just barely got it. Just barely. Oh, there we go. Someone knows it. Who remembered to finish the syllabus quiz? It's okay if you didn't. So both answers are right. Just a little reminder there. Don't forget it's out there for you.
I have a question about that.
Not right now. Not right now. Loves old movies and working on puzzles. Typo too. Everybody remembered that one was Mary. In astrology, which age is due to come directly after the age of Aquarius? This is an HQ7 question. Oh, almost. That's one that hardly anybody got on the actual. Don't want to call it a show. I don't know what it is. Live feed. Who's a sushi chef? Don't tell. Man, you guys have good memories. Or someone told you. Someone drinks a fire. A traveling dog training pizza baker with banking practice. Oh, pretty good. Pretty impressive. Which of these cities became a U.S. state capital first? It's another HQ Savage question. Really good. We still have that one person. Oh, that's just taking over. Saxophone playing casual gamer, amateur artist. Wow. Very good, very good. You guys are so good at remembering. Of course, you've known each other a little bit now. Some of you. A gamer that cooks and works to help preserve original game source code.
I heard this twice.
Very good. Big brain. Everybody remembers.
It's not the wrong answer. No.
Should have been right too, huh? I see what you're saying. I just can't help it. Pictures of cats on glass. Oh, very good. You guys are really good at observing the details. Last one. Buzzer war. Let's see who was the fastest.
No.
And
There's always that one person.
yeah. Yay! You guys did great. Super fun. Every question was answered correctly by most players. Wow, you guys did great. Hard to remember those little details about people. Okay, so yeah, the Kahoot's never a good time for a question unless it's in the Kahoot. Do you have a problem with the syllabus? Send me an email so I don't forget about it, because telling me about it right now, I probably will forget. But an email would be great. All right, let's take a look at Canvas. I said I was going to make some mistakes, and you guys are going to find them, so send me an email. All right. We're looking at our modules, and our lesson 1 we saw was review. You're not seeing what I'm seeing? Hang on. And we've done our introduction. Reminded you about the syllabus being out there. We've got our repl to take a look at and setting up TFS. So as I look at my list here of the things that we need to do today, let's look at TFS first, because we have people that have experience with TFS that I'm sure about, and we have people that don't. So if you are already experienced, you're just going to do this Setup TFS Team project. It is a Google quiz. It's not a little different than a Google form because it assigns points. And as you go through it, it's going to guide you to the TFS portal on the web. And we didn't really use this tool last semester, so that's why we have an additional assignment here about TFS. Now, if you didn't use TFS last semester, you want to go to that next assignment, that TFS treasure hunt, and work through it. Send me messages if you've got questions. Ask your study group for help because they've gotten more experience in that area. Now, for those of us that are experienced, though, on this portal, we're going to use it. First of all, up here in the corner is the username. How to get here. If you go to the Google quiz, you're going to put in your email and your name. And then this is the URL of that portal, cisteam.otc.edu. And you should recognize that, right? Because that's the same URL as we type in on Visual Studio to connect to our TFS server. It's just that in this case, we're entering the URL into a web browser. So we're going to bring up the web portal, just another interface into that TFS storage, another way to look at it. Now, one thing about this URL, with a lot of web browsers, including Chrome, you have to actually type the https:// for it to find that server. Most websites will just automatically switch to that, but for some reason this one doesn't. And if you don't type the https:// sometimes it won't load correctly. It also sometimes will take a couple of times to load. Let me see if it's going to come up correctly for me. I already have it up. So once it loads, you should see something like this. Up in the corner, right here, this drop-down list needs to be set to your username. So I can see everybody's So I can go through and check your TFS folders. You can only see yours and maybe some other shared ones. So sometimes it comes up with one of those shared ones and doesn't put you in the right place. So I'll go find mine. And what we want to do is create a new project. And a project on TFS is that highest level folder. So last semester I created it for you and it was named CIS150. And whenever you connected to TFS, you chose that team folder. Well, now I'm not creating it for you this semester. You're going to create that project folder yourself. So as you go through the Google quiz, it will help you do that. You could wait until then. But I just wanted to give you kind of a preview, a heads up of what you're going to be doing. You need to do this before you do a lot of work in Visual Studio because you want to get stuff checked into TFS. So I don't want to get too far off on it because I know we could end up spending our whole class on it with all of the various things that we can make happen. And it's more important for you to be able to do this at home. So that's what that Google quiz is about. It's going to step you through that process. It's a very simple process of creating that folder. If you don't create this folder, when you are trying to connect in Visual Studio, you're going to get errors. And it's going to say you don't have a team project folder to connect to. And that's what it's talking about. Now, I'm going to suggest you make your project folder CIS151. But you could make it be, project week 1 or project week 7 or whatever you wanted to name that team folder. Just that highest level organization in your TFS structure. Question on?
No.
Thinking? So just remember TFS is nothing more than just like OneDrive. It's just that you have to use these other interfaces to handle it. So we're just creating that top level folder because the IT staff has wiped out what you had before. Okay, so questions about that one. You want to be sure you're calling, sending messages in Discord and stuff if you run into trouble because it's real easy to fix problems, but they can be really, really frustrating.
Is it okay that it says that I don't have sufficient permissions to create?
Change the top left corner to your
Yeah, make sure it's you. And that's why it's really important on this version control that you pick Team Foundation version control. So that's why I don't want you to actually do anything right now. I want you to wait until you're looking at that Google quiz and making sure you're getting everything the way it needs to be. Because we don't need to, I want you to really be thinking about it as you're going through it with that Google quiz. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm doing it backwards. Let's just go ahead and create it. If you're all here, I'm making things too hard. I'm just going to put in CIS151. I'm going to change my version control to Team Foundation and click Create. Kind of slow. So that's another reason I'm like, oh, do it at home, but that's okay. Now, if I were working for a company, these project folder names, I'm going to have to call them, aren't I? You can't really see anything I'm typing, can you? Can you see it on Zoom okay?
Yeah.
It's all right, it's just this thing? Okay. Because it's just not letting us see stuff very good. All right, you should end up with something like this that tells you that that project folder was created. So if you're familiar with GitHub, this is just the same as creating a new repository. We're just creating a top level folder. Everybody work okay? You got one? No? What did you
We're
do?
supposed to be going through the Google quiz to get there.
Uh-huh.
So I'm clicking on the link and it's just timing out.
Is it just timing out?
Yeah. The first link for the CIS team.
So go ahead and type it in, copy it and paste it.
That works with me.
Okay.
Copy pasting.
Copy and
Instead of
pasting it.
using the link.
So I don't know why it lets me click on it. I actually clicked on it just to be sure, because I know it just causes trouble and it doesn't look like it's in there right. You copy and paste it.
Okay, good. Okay.
Now, do up in the corner, make sure it's set to your username.
TTS, I think that's what it's reading.
Yeah, it's weird, it's like it didn't put it in the link again when I clicked on it. Everybody else okay? If we got it created, then we'll be able to just use it right away and hopefully avoid problems.
Okay, so I made it there.
So we wanted to do version control,
Okay.
and then put in a project name, and we just made it CIS151.
Somewhere.
Okay, thank you. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure. All right, so now as we look at the TFS portal, it does give us some good information. And we pull this down a little bit so it's not full screen. First of all, right here, it shows me what team project folder I'm in. And if I did that drop down, if I have multiple project folders, I'll see them. So if I were working at Jack Henry, right, when I did that drop down list, I would see all the different team projects for projects I were working on. Like, you know, the banking interface project or the, you know, mobile app development project or whatever things I'm working on, they're probably going to each have their own separate team project in TFS. And that's how we would keep things straight. So when we're at school, we just ourselves are our team. So that's why sometimes TFS can seem a little clunky to work with, because it's designed for working with teams. And when we're just working on our own, it doesn't seem as meaningful. So that's what's going on there. Now, beside that project folder, that little black icon is the TFS user list. So I could go back to that if I wanted to switch to a different user account. If I click on my project folder, I go back to this screen here, and I can click on the code link to actually view the source code that I have saved in that project folder. Right now, it's a brand new project folder. I don't have any source code saved in it, but after we create some, we can come back and look and see it there. So with Visual Studio 2019, when you have a project in TFS, you can actually click on the source code here, and it'll show an option asking you if you want to open that project in Visual Studio, and you can just open it directly from the web portal. So it is a really nice interface. Hopefully it'll help. Okay, questions? Everybody got that set up okay? Do go through that Google quiz to get those points, and do look at that TFS treasure hunt if it's something that's not familiar to you. Somebody's pinging me in Discord. That guy in Branson. Should I see what he's going on? Okay. So I've got my TFS folder all set. I'm all good to go. The next thing that I'm hearing concerns about is our first repl assignment. So let's take a look. So this is named a classy review because it's a review of class things. If you haven't done any repl activities before, this one is going to be very interesting for you. Again, your partners have done them and they can help you, guide you through it if you come up with questions and just aren't quite understanding how it works. When you click on the link, it's going to take you to this website, repl.it. repl stands for Read, Execute, Print, Loop, which as you get more and more familiar with programming, You understand that's kind of a basic construct that we're always making. The read, execute, print loop, you know? So that's what repl is short for. I'm gonna click on this link. I'm not logged on to the repl site, so the first thing it's gonna do is show me the login screen. I already have an account, so I'm gonna use it. If you don't have an account, you'll wanna create one. Remember my password. Now, if you had to create an account, you might have to go back and click on that invitation link again for it to actually associate the class with your account. Sometimes it's a little kludgy with that. But we're looking for this green one, a classy review. The first thing that we see when we look at the class is a list of different assignments in this little repl class. The first assignment is how to use repl. It's just kind of a review and an introduction for people who haven't used it before. The next project is a reminder of how to set up our locale for repl because it's an international site. We have to actually use code to say, I'm in the US. I want to use that form of currency, that form of other things that might be location dependent. We have to set our locale. Then the third step is to create a method. So let's take a look at the first one. And when you're using repl, the window is split up into three areas. First of all, we have our coding window. Sometimes you're going to have some sample code already supplied. Sometimes it'll be kind of empty, up to you. Down here is our execution response window. So we'll see our output messages, compiler messages, things like that. And over here are our instructions. So we have to go through the instructions and kind of try to follow along and see what it wants us to do. You can see mine's kind of grayed out. I've already done it. It's like, I don't know what you're doing. But if I look at my instructions, it says, oh, you can submit your repl when your output matches the requirement. So how do I know if that's true? Well, with my code over here, I can click the run button to run it, and repl will compile it and execute it. Right away, it's mad at me. It says, oh, you can't do that. What's wrong with it? Who can tell me? Mean trick. Remember, repl doesn't like the solution statement that Visual Studio puts in.
Oh, you need to put namespace.
We'll just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get rid of that solution statement and its associated closing curly brace. So that was just a reminder that if you copy and paste from Visual Studio to repl, you might have to get rid of some of that Visual Studio header information. So I should just end up with my class and my main method. Now I can run again. And I come out with my output that is expected that says hello world. Did it work? Got it? Okay, so how can I check to make sure that's the expected output? Well, on the run button, if you use the drop down, you can actually tell it to run the test to see if it's going to submit successfully. Mine did, but what if it didn't? I'll make it say something wrong. Like, hello world 12. Now I'll run the test again. And this time I'll get an error. It says the output doesn't match. So I can either click on this pink message bar or the show details button. It seems to do the same thing. And then it'll show you what was expected and what your output was. And it tries to highlight it for you down in this last little message box. So if you see, it has the letters 1 and 2 highlighted and underlined, that those are the output that doesn't match. So once I've got my output matching, I can submit. Now, if I want to go ahead and submit like this because I don't know what's wrong, I've been messing with it for a really long time and I can't get it to work, I can submit it like this. It will come through and I'll be able to see your code. And then I'll be able to look at it and type out messages, you know, line 57 looks like you are missing a semicolon or whatever it is, and send it back to you. The only thing is, I don't get a good message that you have submitted something that you have a question about. So you do need to tell me in repl or send me an email and say, hey, in the classy review repl, I have a question on the one that I just submitted because I'm not sure what's going on. And then I'll take a look and we can just go back and forth with it. So I've had people that have had major problems and we've been able to resolve them just within 5 or 7 minutes or so of working back and forth, sending the code back and forth, because we can resolve things like that very quickly using repl that way. And that's what it's really designed for. So don't, you know, if something is looking confusing to you, think about it in another way. You know, try to shift your view a little bit and read that instruction again. Try to think about whether you're making it too complicated. Sometimes we have a tendency to do that when we're looking at really small instructions. We think, oh, there's got to be something else, there's something else hidden, especially if we get a compiler error, and it could end up being a very small thing like a space or a typo, and we can think that we're missing this whole underneath current that we don't see. So don't complicate it. Remember that very first programming thing, keep it simple. What is it, stupid sucker, someone, I don't know, keep it simple. Because when we start thinking that we're not being complicated enough, we really complicate things. Okay, so if I didn't have it matching right and I wanted some help with it, I would click submit. repl would say, it doesn't match, and I could say submit anyways. And then go, hey Riley, I don't know what's going on with this thing. Can you take a look at it? And I'll look at it and send it back to you so that you can see what I think you need to fix. Now, if you don't send me a message, whenever I grade the repl, I'll just assume that you were done with it at that state and you really didn't want to continue. I'll probably still send you a response back saying, hey, you know, it was line 45, there was this problem, you know, so that you know. But it's better for you if you get with me so that we can resolve it. Sometimes it's easy to get frustrated, so let's do that. Now, repl doesn't do a very good job at taking you from one assignment to the next, so you have to kind of do that manually. Let's look at 2-1, the locale thing. So in this one, the instructions are just telling you that to format currency properly, we have to use some international settings. So this is really good for us because we know about doing this already. A company that works in an international domain, we have a lot of companies in our area that do that, are always going to have code like this in all of their different applications to set the location. So if I have locations in the United States and Canada, I'm going to need to be able to tell what output formatting I should use based on that location. In repl, since it's international, we're saying my current culture is that I use the English US standards for currency formatting, number formatting, all those different things. Then when we write our output, we can use that currency formatting information. So in this example code, the majority of the code is there for you, but you have to make some minor changes to actually make it use that currency culture information. It actually gives you the code, I think, to do it. And then I want to go back to the classroom and look at the next one. I'll let you guys figure that one out. 3-1. So this series of 3, you're going to create a class. So it's been a little while since you've done that. Those videos are out there about the animal class. We're going to look at some more stuff about advanced class coding, which is really minor. We'll be talking about it a bunch. So let's see what this one wants. This one says, you have some code here. The main method calls a method named outWelcome. We would like this method to produce this output. Welcome to the matrix. So we need to create the method. In the REPL code that's supplied, there's a big long comment reminding you how to create a method header. But it's pretty easy. Let's click in there and do it very quickly. We want our method to be named outWelcome. We don't really care whether it's public or private at this point, right? Because it's in our main class. I remember that anything that's in my main class has to be marked static. So I'm going to say this is a static method. We want it to write output to the screen, but we don't want it to return a value. So it will be void, not returning a value. Its name will be outWelcome. And it doesn't need any parameters. And then it says that we want to output these actual message lines. Do you remember how to do output in C# to the console? Is it the console class? See if I can remember.
Is there a way to do it all in one line? Because it accepted, I wrote it in 3 different lines and it accepted that. I'm just asking for future reference. Is there a way to
We
do
could. Let's try that.
Okay.
I'm going to copy it. And I'm just going to paste that whole thing. And I could do, yeah, \n at each spot.
That's what I thought, and for some reason mine wasn't liking it, so maybe it's just something I did then.
No, let's check. It might be that it's copying formatting over from the way this is set up.
Right.
And not liking it. So we are definitely going to multiple lines. So I'm going to backspace here. Get it all squished together, super ugly.
Maybe that's what I did wrong then. I didn't squish it ugly.
Yeah, make sure it's all squished super ugly. Because if we have new lines, we'd have to end our string and use the plus and have another string.
That's what I did, all right.
So does that work? Let's run it.
I just didn't squish it ugly.
Oh, look at that. Did I forget my semicolon? Yep.
You did it on purpose to test us.
That's what it is. Oh, now it's really mad at me. It says, I don't know what a right line statement is. Gosh, does it mean that I can't remember? Do I have to go look it up?
So you have to put system dot.
It liked my right line, it just didn't like anything I did making it with the N. I don't know why.
Well, so what is it supposed to be?
So I did 3 different right lines and it accepted it.
Is it uppercase L?
Yes.
You're so good.
For that.
3 output lines would be fine too.
I just wrote out line, like right line, L-I-N-E. That work?
Is that what it is? See? You guys think that you should memorize everything.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you might have to look back in some textbooks, do some Googling to figure out what the exact syntax is for some of the code. And that's what this REPL is for, is to get you back to looking at those things and, oh, I don't remember how to do output to the console. Okay, well, go ahead and review and refresh so that you remember how to do that. And that's all this one is for. So this very first class method then, I've created a new method. in my main class. So that one should be done. If you've got it, you can do the test and make sure it matches properly. And if everything looks good, then you can submit it. Oops. In 3-2, the next one, it's going to ask you to create a method to prompt a user for input. So again, you might have to do a little bit of Googling, a little bit of looking at your code from the first semester to remember how to do that. And then we're going to create a method to do a calculation and one to output some information. Now I want to skip to 4-2 because I want to help with that one and make sure that nobody runs into any glitches with it. In 4-2, we're going to actually create a new class called Park, or Parks, yeah, Park. And it's a class that's going to describe national parks. And when you're working with REPL, to create a new class, we want a new .cs file. Because with C#, we like to keep each class in its own .cs file. We could mix them all together, but that's not a good standard. So make sure everybody knows how to do that. This little icon lets you add a new file to your REPL project. So we want to add a new file. It says, oh, you're going to be going into project mode. Okay. And then it doesn't really do anything. It's kind of like that first access of REPL. If you weren't logged on, it doesn't really do anything. But it did do something. It put our main CS file in a tab. So now when I click again to add a new file, it actually adds another tab for me. So I'm going to go to my new tab. It's empty. And I'm going to rename it, because this is going to be my Park class, and my CS file needs to have the same name. Now that I've got that file created and properly named, I'm ready to create the information in my Park class that it needs. Now, as you go through this REPL, it could take a few minutes to get some of them done, because you're going to have to be searching for that old code or be searching for examples on how to do things, because it's not going to have a lot of that supplied for you. So that'll be kind of a good way for you to jump in and remember, you know, where everything is, find stuff. So that's what this one's for. Now, a few things about the REPLs. Remember, when the REPL is super picky about something, a space problem or something like that, it's because that's what we do as software developers. We have to be that picky and that detail-oriented. Now, if we're displaying a website, it may not matter, you know, too much about what's on there and exactly where it is. But if we're creating an output file or updating a database or generating something that has to be more specific, then it can be very, very critical exactly where each piece of data is. I used to work on a system that would read in invoices, all of the bills that the company had sent out every night. And we would read in those invoices that had been printed out and mailed out, and we would put them into a database so that they were available online for the department to view and just to bring up. So it was kind of an early document management system. And the way that the code was written, if the programmer who output the invoices made a small change, they could totally destroy the whole system. Because if they change something from a new line character to an end of line character, which is possible on the mainframe, that's a really minor change. You can't see it, can't see the difference. It looks exactly the same, but it would totally destroy that subsystem that was dependent upon that file. So that's why the repls are designed to be that particular with you, to be that picky. As a software developer, we have to be that detail oriented and know exactly where everything is and make sure everything is in the exact right place. It gets to be kind of fun because it's kind of challenging. So we just have to approach it that way. It's like a puzzle and a challenge. So this repl is out here for you. And we have a lot to do at the beginning of the semester. So I'm going to minimize it now and leave it for you to work on later. And I'm going to bring over this thing here to remind you about classes. I'm really sad because those of you that know me know I'm pretty consistent, I guess. And this is my favorite thing to do when we're talking about classes, is show the Unity sphere emitter. So this is our little Hello World project for the game programming class that is next semester. And all it is a little sphere emitter. Well, I can't show you the actual project because Unity isn't installed on these computers, and I didn't realize that until this morning. So I can only show you a video of looking at it in the past. But think about what's going on here when we're looking at this. When we look at this sphere emitter, remember, every single ball that gets emitted from this is an object, right? So as an object, remember, we have specific data that we can keep track about an object. What are specific attributes or data elements that we would want to keep track of about each of our spheres? You think of things? In this case, they're all the same color, but I would probably want them to be different colors. So I would like to be able to change the color attribute of those spheres. What else would be something that's unique to each instance of a sphere there?
X and Y.
The X and Y location. What else?
You could also do like the weight or mass of it.
Yeah, so we could have some that were lighter, that went a little faster, and some that were heavier. In the same way, we could also even like affect the physics of it if we wanted to in other ways. So yeah, we could do that. What else could we do? The size. One thing that's interesting about this application that you can't see because I don't have Unity, unfortunately, is it does a terrible job of garbage collection. So when these balls go off the screen, the spheres are actually still there in memory. They haven't been deleted. So we would be able to see that if I could run it in Unity and you could see the thousands of them collecting up over there and that they're all active. So it would be nice if we had some sort of maybe flag to indicate the status of the sphere. Like, is it on the screen? Something like that. Now we might want to implement garbage collection and just delete that instance if it's not on the screen anymore. But we might want to keep track of its status too. So we could do that. And we could do that with just like a switch, a little Boolean flag that we turn to true or false depending on the state. Okay, so when we're working with object-oriented programming, we're working with objects. Our objects are defined using the class statement, right? So we know that we start class sphere, and that gives that class a name. Then within our class, we declare all of our data elements right under the class statement, the elements that we want to be instance-wide, global to our class. We can get to those data elements from anywhere in our class if we define those as our private data elements. We also saw that with C#, we like to make our data elements within our class private, and then we like to make public properties that are like an opening into our class to let other users access our data. Do you remember last semester? I was thinking about properties like that, and to me, I came up with a scenario that makes sense to me, that a property in C# is kind of like a bartender, right? Because every person that walks into the bar theoretically could just walk up to the liquor and make their own drink, right? They know how to do it. They know what they want. They might know what they want better than the bartender, right? They could do that. But the bar might not make any money that way. So all of that liquor is kept private. And the only way that liquor is made public is if we go through the bartender. So the bartender is our property, who says, what would you like? Oh, okay, I'm gonna go make that for you. And they actually touch that private inventory that's back behind the bar. So just in the same way, when I create a class, my Sphere class, I want to keep my data private. I don't want some Square class to come along and say, hey, Sphere, you just turned into a square, or do some other weird thing to it. I want my Sphere class to be controlled by my Sphere class. So I'm going to make sure that those properties can only be updated if I want them to be. So I can put data checks in my properties and make sure everything is right. The other thing that classes can have, besides data, right, are actions. So for our spheres, what kind of actions do we have? We don't know exactly what they're called, but we would say there's an action that like instantiates one, right? Constructs one. So we have to have a constructor. We've seen too, as we're working with C#, that one common method that's in the system class is the toString method, right? And that converts whatever object type we're working with to string data, and we can control that. So we probably want to have a toString method in our class. And then other actions that we have are going to depend on what we want our object to be able to do. So again, I might have a delete action to get rid of my spheres that have gone off the screen. What else might I have as an action?
Enable physics.
Enable physics. Anything else you can think of?
Speed.
Speed. So would we want to have like increase? How about set speed? Now, when we get to that point, remember at that point, that becomes a property.
Change color.
Right? And set color. So all of those things that are updating our data would be property type controls. Okay? So we're getting everything, all of the different pieces of our class put together. It's pretty simple. We don't have really advanced code or anything here. Our logic, you know, looping things and if statements and all that kind of complicated structure just comes within these methods that we build to control our actions. But the class structure itself is real simple. It's just an outline. We're just saying, okay, a sphere is this, is this, is this, and that's all. Okay, questions? Thinking about it? Let's look at Visual Studio and look at a class that we have access to. Now we're going to try to run Visual Studio 2019. Now remember, you don't really need to sign in. You can say not now, maybe later. Pick whichever theme you want. If you change your development settings to C#, it'll be a little bit more specific for you. And of course, it'll take a second. minimized it, so. All right, so what do we want to do? So many choices, so many choices. I'm going to say continue without code because I want to make that oh so wonderful TFS connection before I do anything else. Now, if you've got this JetBrains user agreement, we have some software installed, and you can just scroll down and say, I accept. Now, with this software, of course, it can make things look just a little bit different than what you'll have at home. So these are the pieces of software that they have installed here. ReSharper, and a few other utilities. All of these tools are from JetBrains, and you guys are welcome to go to that website and get all of those tools for free at home with your student account. So if you like the way things are working here more than the way they're working at your house, it could be ReSharper and these other tools. Now the school has licenses for them though, so we're going to click OK. Oh, it says our trial license is going to expire, so they may have changed things. All right, let me get this over here where you can see it. I'm going to select do not set shortcuts since it's just a trial. And if you selected something else, that's all right. We should be able to go in and change it. But if it's not going to stay, I don't want them to be messing with things. Can you see everything? I know it's not quite the same because you've got the Zoom session. No, not quite. Okay, Visual Studio looking super unfriendly. This is Microsoft's way of making sure you guys always have good jobs, right?
Yeah.
But you sure can start using it that way. All right, so let's start. We want to go to Team Explorer because we want to establish our TFS connection. So I'm going to use my View menu and find Team Explorer. See if I can make this screen where we can all see it. And what do we want to do? We want to connect. And we want to add a server. And our server is https:// Now, there should be some places we can find this before I finish typing it. On our Discord server, the C# Discord server, there is a TFS channel. If you look at that TFS channel, there are some pinned messages. So there are some helpful things here. Connection issues. Down at the end of the pinned messages is our server URL, if you're needing to find it sometime. Now, some of the other things that are on that TFS channel, there's videos posted, I think like last semester, Jacob was having a problem and we solved it through a Zoom session, so we just posted that video in case other people ran into that same kind of issue. So do scroll up a little bit and look and see if there's something that'll help you. You might be able to find exactly what is wrong there in that channel. And if you don't, if you post a question there, we'll be able to help. So sometimes when the IT staff tells me what the URL is, they add the /TFS, and sometimes they don't. So I'm going to click add without it and see what happens. Yours is probably already connected and mine will take 25 minutes. Connecting for you. you doing there, Penny? Why would it take so long? You should see me grading. You guys are all connected. Oh, it's finally came up. Here I am. All right. So now that you've got connected, you should be seeing your little CIS151 team project that you just created. And that's what we want to connect to. I'm going to scroll down and find my account. And find my 151 project and click connect. Before I can connect to that TFS project, I have to tell Windows where to save the code that it copies from the TFS server to my local machine. By default, it wants to put it in my users folder on my C drive. That's a perfectly fine place because I want this code to be as close to me as possible. Remember, when it's on TFS, it's out in the cloud. When I'm editing it and running it, I don't want it in the cloud. I want it on my local machine, so it's the fastest that it can be. So don't use your OneDrive here. If you do use your OneDrive here, you can make things work magically for a while. It'll look like all of your TFS check-ins are going, and you'll have your code at home on OneDrive when you get to it. What'll happen though, is if there's one time that you can't connect to OneDrive because of a network problem or whatever, it's gonna mess up the whole deal. And TFS is just gonna go into a terrible loop trying to find it. And you won't be able to do anything. I've seen that happen a lot of times. So I would recommend you not use your OneDrive. You know I would have you use your OneDrive if it were safe at all. But leave it on your C drive, just click map and get. Remember, that's just a temporary location. You're only working on it on your local machine. You're saving it to the TFS server is where you want it to actually be maintained. Okay, so now I should be able to tell from my team project that I'm connected. I don't have any weird GitHub logos. No weirdo GitHub stuff, right? Because you know once it gets wrecked by GitHub, it's messy.
Mine was fine, and I think it just reverted back to GitHub.
Did it?
Yeah.
So
I had everything set up, and then all of a sudden it just went GitHub.
and if it did that, it could be that when we created that team project, it might have had that option still set to GitHub. So it shouldn't. So don't worry about it too much, because we'll fight with it after we're done here and get it moved, because we know how to do it. All right, so I have my good connection to TFS. I'm ready to create a project. So I'm going to use my file menu to create a new project. And when I'm using 2019, the interface, of course, is a little bit different for the project type. And if I look here, I could actually change what templates are being displayed. So right now it's displaying templates for all the different languages. I could change that to just C# if I wanted to limit that list a little bit more. I could change my platform to Windows in the same way. And then I can look at project types. Again, it's a pretty wide field there. I'm not going to use it to limit anything down, but I could. And what I'm looking for here is I want to create a Windows Forms project. Ah, finally, there it is. So I see here's my Windows Forms app. That looks good. That's the one I want. So I'm going to select it and then click next. Now I need to give my app a name. We're going to be using in this application, we're going to use the PictureBox control. Your very first project assignment is to create a game, and it's a dice game. So in order to throw our dice, to roll them, we'd like to use some picture boxes so we could have those nice pictures displayed. So let's say this is going to be a project, I'll call it week 01 picture box. And then I'm going to create it. Everybody all set? Everything working okay? And it's not spazzing out on anybody. Now my project is created. If I click on Solution Explorer, I should be able to see the different components in my project. Remember when I'm working with a Windows Forms project, I've got a form component, and then I have my program.cs file. My program.cs file does very little, just displays my form, right? So I don't need to worry about it. Everybody got a project okay? So I want to edit my form. The controls that I can add to my form are in my toolbox. My toolbox is auto hid over here on the side, so I'm going to click on its tab, and I'm going to press the push pin once it builds to pin it so it doesn't auto hide for me for a minute. I don't care if it auto hides when I'm working on code, but I would like for it not to. Yes, sir?
Remember once again, a firewall pop-up?
Yeah. I think we're okay, because if we allow access, it's not gonna matter. So we'll just have to close it.
Mine's asking for a username and password.
Yeah, you'll just have to close it, because we don't have admin rights. I've sent an email to the help desk about it, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Because in our other room, we were able to do that kind of stuff to not be affected by it. So I hope they make that change in here. I was realizing they don't even know that I'd moved. So I want to add a picture box control to my form. First thing though, let's kind of look at our form. Let's do some review. I clicked on my form, so my form is what's showing up over here in my properties window. Let's change the background color of that form. What color do you want it to be? Make it something you like. How can I find it? Well, remember with my properties, I'm just always keeping them sorted in alphabetical order, because I hate digging through trying to find those properties in that category order. So in alphabetical order, I'd be looking for my back color, and I'll change it. With Visual Studio, remember the first option you have for colors are these ugly system colors. You can click on the web tab to bring up some more colors that are named, or you can bring up custom to do a little bit more of a palette. And then I would like to change my fore color also, because I'd like my font, my text color to be a little bit more pleasing than just that black on my nice colored background. So I'm going to pick something, let's see, I picked salmon or coral or something for my background, so I think I'll do like sienna for my text. Now, speaking of text, my default font is like 8.25, and that's super small. I'd like you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to change my default font size to like 12. Remember, all of those changes that you make to your form become your defaults for creating controls on your form. So we want to do all those first before we start adding stuff, or else we might end up with things not all formatted in the same way. Now, another thing I'd like to change on my form is the text property. The text property is what appears in my form title bar. And nothing to note, a lazy programmer more than a form named Form 1. That's what I always tell my computer programming judges. If it's Form 1, take off points. I don't anymore. Okay, so I'm going to call this PictureBox Controls. And then I should be ready to go. Okay, I've got my toolbox pinned. I got my properties and stuff available so that I can do all of my development. Remember, if you have multiple monitors at home, this is the kind of stuff that developers spread out across their monitors. So we would have our properties window, you know, on this monitor up here, and our toolbox on monitor over here, in our design, in our window right in front of us. So that's why it's so important for developers to have multiple monitors, because we can drag these windows right off of this Visual Studio surface and put it wherever we want. But I want to find a picture box. So I know I could dig around through all these different categories, or I can look at all Windows forms and I can find it in alphabetical order. Well, you know how I am. I'm going to go find a picture box.
There's a search box on the top of it.
I could use it too. And there's so many tools that really comes in handy. You might need it. Now, when I'm working with a picture box, I have to have some sort of image or something to display in it, right? So I could use whatever I wanted. Let's go find some. If you look on Canvas, find my Canvas window here. I just don't have one. I'm going to the Petals Around the Rose assignment. And I want to make sure you guys can open it, first of all. And within the assignment, there's a link here to this Vorit website. That's where I want to go. So this is kind of the application that we're going to create. I want you guys to use your own design and come up with another, you know, of course you're going to kind of use this. It's going to be in the back of your mind. But you don't have to use roses, and I mean, you can use whatever you like. So this is a kind of a web-based implementation of this game. I want you to read through the information and stuff on your own. Spend time trying to figure out the logic of this puzzle, but then of course, if you Google how to play it, you're going to find it in a billion different places. Why? Because this is like a real game that really drove Bill Gates crazy. So apparently, if you click on the Bill Gates link here, he was at some party or something back in the 70s, and they showed him this game, and he couldn't stop because he couldn't figure it out. And so this link shows you all sorts of different roles and what the actual answer is, and it helps a whole bunch in understanding the logic of the game. So we need some dice images, because all of this is all dependent on these dice. So could we find something pretty easily? Let's check. I'm going to just Google it. Now, some of you I know are D&D players. So these are like a certain kind of dice too, right? They're not just the only dice known to man. They're like a six-sided something, because I'm not up on it. So we know that we have some different types of dice that we could use. Right here, Getty Images comes up with a bunch. That could work. I could do anything with that. I'm going to find one. And find some that you like because there are just so many different ones. So we're going to end up with a whole bunch. I'll just use this Shutterstock and get some images downloaded. Oh, that's not what I want. It's giving me zip disks, really old.
Change the S to an E
Do what?
in your search. Oh, never mind.
I'll just download them. It's going to fight with me.
On the real download level.
I have a bunch of dice images available. So let's just grab one. I'm going to use the snipping tool and just get one face of one dice. So I'll just get like this one. And I'm just going to save this one picture to my pictures folder. And I'll just call it one die. I've got a zip file of dice that I'll get posted for you, so. Just get one now for the meantime, and we'll get that whole zip file sent to you, and I'm sure you can find some prettier ones you'll like better. All right, if everybody's got a picture, if you remember when we were working with forms last semester, I know it goes really quickly, you don't get a lot of practice. But when we're working with a PictureBox, the little triangle up at the top of the control gives us quick actions. And one of the quick actions we have is choose image. So we could go find that die image and load it to our project. But I want to show you a different way. So instead of doing it that way, I would like to look at the properties for our project. So there's lots of ways you can find that window, just like everything else in Visual Studio. But I'm going to go to the project menu, and down at the bottom, I'm going to click on properties for my project. Now, when I look at the project properties, this is an area we'll be this semester looking at a lot of the facilities available within Visual Studio, the tools a lot more than we got to the first semester. And you'll see that there is a lot to it. Well, when I'm looking at my project properties, I have a lot of different things. This first primary window allows me to say what kind of application this is. So I could change this output type to console if I wanted it to be a console app and I had chosen Windows Form by mistake. I could make general changes like that to my project. What I'm looking for, though, are the resources associated with this project, because a picture would be a resource. So I'm going to click on the resources link. Now when I do that, that shows me all sorts of different resources that I can add to my project. Right now it's set to strings. I want to look at images. So I'm going to choose that strings drop down and change it to images. I have no images, so I need to add that one. So I could add a resource here using the button, or I can bring up File Explorer and find my picture and drag and drop it into my resources for my project. Now, the reason I show you that is you're going to have a lot of images to put in this project, right? With all these different dice faces. So you can drag them and drop them all right into your project. That works for everybody? Now we can actually access these resources in our code, so we're going to do that with our project. But for right now, we just want to use this picture box, or this picture, I'm sorry, in our picture box. I'm done with my project resources, so I can close this tab. Now when I use this quick launch action and select choose image, my one die picture is already showing up in the list because I've already put it into the project resources. Okay. Now my size mode, I'm going to change to auto size because I want the picture box itself to make itself the size of my image. Remember, all those different settings will give you different options. Okay, let's run this project. That's all we should see is our picture box. Is it working? Okay, you got a picture box showing up. So that's cool, that's great. But that's not what we need for our project. We need to be able to create this picture box on the form, right? Because how are we going to be able to control what die is shown and all of those kinds of things unless we do it in our code? So if we add like 5 or 6 picture boxes here across the screen, our code is going to be awful. It's going to be set picture box 1 to this image, set picture box 2 to this image, set picture box 3 to this image. And we'll just have all this duplicate code that will go on and on and on. But if we could control it ourselves in our code and create this picture box on the fly dynamically when we run the application, then we don't have to worry about all that duplicate code. We can handle it. So let's see how we could do that. We know that the Windows generated code gets placed in this form1.designer.cs code. So I'm going to take a look at that. Some of the code is hidden, rolled up here, so I'm going to expand it. And then now this is my constructor for the form, our initialized component method. If you look down a little bit, you'll see they even have a comment. This is the chunk of code they use to create the picture box. So find that and let's cut it. I'm going to grab the comment and I'm going to get all of that code up to the beginning of the form 1 comment. And like I said, I'm going to cut it. Now I'm going to go to my form design. Oops, no picture box anymore because I just cut that code out of the form designer code. I'm going to double click on my form to create a form load event, and I'm going to paste that code in there. That's not going to be quite enough, but that's almost everything. Let's see if we have any errors anywhere. In our form designer code, we might have a place where we refer to our picture box. Looks good though, so I'm going to try to run it. It's not giving me any errors. Does your picture box show up on your form? In my form designer, I still have some picture box code. I'm going to grab that again. It's like it copied it instead of cutting it, or it stuck it back in there or something. see if it keeps putting it back in there. Oh, it was just a little bit. I must have missed something. So I'm just using that form generated code as kind of a template for me so that I know how to create a PictureBox control. Now there are a couple of other things we need to do though. So let's investigate that form designer code a little bit more. Because right up here in the initialized components, it actually says this .PictureBox1 is a new PictureBox. That's where we instantiate that PictureBox, right? So we're going to need that to be in our form load. I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to move it and put it in my form load with that other code. Oh, I finally made it really mad, didn't I? That's okay. It's saying, oh, now you've got errors here in your form, so we'll keep going. I'm just going to go straight to my form code and instantiate that PictureBox. And I'm going to comment out this line of code here that it's upset about. Now, can I see my form designer again, or is it still just erroring out? I'm going to click this go to code and see what it's upset about. There it is. It's buried right in the middle there. There's a line of code that says, add this PictureBox to the form. So I need to cut that line of code out of this form generated code. Sorry, we're kind of getting a little advanced here looking at this form generated code, but kind of be thinking about how you're just using this as a resource to figure out how to do it on your own. When we're done, we'll be done. So I'm going to add that to the end. So what I've done, what I've taken from the form designer code then, is I've found the code I need to create a PictureBox on the fly. So first, I'm going to instantiate a new PictureBox named PictureBox1. I'm going to set properties for that PictureBox, what its name is, where it is on the form, what image it uses. It uses an image called OneDie from our resources. And then I'm going to add that PictureBox to my form. So let's see if we can run it. It's still mad at me. It says, oh, I've got this weird exception on this system.component thing. So I'm going to comment out that line of code also. And we'll see if that causes us trouble. Okay, so we should see our PictureBox on the form that we created ourselves. So let's look at that code and make sure everybody's got it. In our system generated code, we took some things out. So anything that's giving you an error in that Form 1 designer code, you can just remove. Okay? So if it's giving you an error, remove it. And then in your Form 1 code, where we do the form load, we should have this. The only thing that should be different for yours might be the name of your picture and your location. Let's change that around. We could move things around. I'm going to change my location, and let's see, right now my X coordinate is 415 and my Y coordinate is 194. So I'll move it up a little bit. I'll make it 294 and run it again. See if I can tell the difference. a little bit. I should be able to move it around. So we can try changing all of these different properties however we like for our PictureBox control. How are you doing? Is everybody's working? Got it? So it would be nice if I could use this to generate picture boxes over and over and over, right? And then I could just have like 5 or 6 of them or whatever I wanted. So I could make this be a separate method, right, to build a picture box. Let's do it. Right under my form load method, I'm going to create a new one. But I'm going to need something to tell me like the position of it. So I'll say that I want a parameter passed to me that maybe is like a counter of which picture box this is. Is it the first one or the second one or the third one? So I can kind of decide how to place it on the screen. For my new method, I need all of this code. So I'm going to move it. Got you to create it. Now I'll make you move it. And in our form load, let's just call our new load picture method. And I'll just pass a 1 for now. New IntelliSense there telling me what that 1 is going to become. Now I did some modifications here, so I'm going to run this and make sure that I haven't broken it. I should still see my 1 picture box get displayed, and I'm all good to go. Oh my gosh, so how cool is that? Since I've got a method now, I could like create all sorts of them. Let's do it. I could say that I'm going to use a for loop controlled by an integer named I, and I'm going to start with I set to 0. Now let's set it to 1 since it's our first picture box. And I'm going to run maybe 3 of these. That would be I. And I want to increase the value of I for each run. And within my loop, I just want to run our load picture method. Instead of just passing 1, I can change it to use our I variable. Now, if I run it now, I'm probably going to end up with 3 or 4 pictures, but they're all going to be right on top of each other, right? Because their location is all exactly the same. So it looks like for our X, we said 415 was our starting point for our first one. But our size says our width is actually 142. So we could kind of use that. Let's set up a variable here. We'll make it an integer, and we'll say that it's going to be the X location. And we'll set it equal to 42, just some random number, plus our counter value that was passed to us times 142, since our box Our picture box is 142 by. And then in my next line of code, instead of just putting in 415, I'm going to put in my X location. Try it. You should end up with a few different picture boxes here. Awesome. Now I didn't add any padding space for in between them, so we could add that to our formula pretty easily to get additional space in between. Everybody's work okay? Sort of. Okay, so lots for your brain. Lots and lots for your brain. First of all, you're going to work through that repl. Get feeling comfortable with writing that code again. You already have gone a lot further than, at least for me, because I couldn't remember how to do it right. So you're going to kind of get familiar with that again. And then you're going to look through the Petals Around the Rose assignment and look at the websites and try to figure out the logic behind the game. So you're not going to really be worried about writing code too much, just thinking about the logic behind the game. Then we want to take this code a little bit and think about how are we going to use this to make it display 5 die or 6 die or however many we need for the game. Monday, we're going to work on that a little bit more as far as putting things in arrays, but I'm not going to really give you a lot more of demo stuff because I know you'll be better off if you kind of hash it out. Now work with your group and kind of think about how should we do this? What's a good way? So Monday we'll be checking in, looking at putting our picture box in arrays, and then the rest of the time will be lab time for you guys to work on the project. Right now the due date is next Wednesday. And next Wednesday, that would be a time for each of you to present your solution to everybody else, because you're going to be amazed at the difference in solutions that we're going to come up with. It's really cool. In the first semester, when we look at what other people did, we could be really impressed and think, oh, I didn't think of doing it that way. But when we start getting to more advanced projects like this, we can just be amazed at the differences in the way people approach things. It all comes out in the end working. So it's so neat to see such different ways of handling it. Let's get it to TFS so you can see it from home. So to get it to TFS, I've already connected, but I did not check the box to tell this project to load to TFS automatically, because I wanted to make sure we remembered, always start at your solution level. Remember, if you just randomly click carry to add this to source code and check it in, you might be selected accidentally down here on this farm1.res file, and that's the only file you check in. It'll act like it all works, but that's all I'll see is that one little RESX file. So we always want to check in at the solution level, the topmost level. So I'm going to right click and say add to source control. If I can find it. There it is. Used to be down further. So right in the middle, the add that's not in the add menu. Add solution to source control. Now it should pop up and show you that project folder you've created. You can make a folder inside of that one for this project, which it'll do by default. It'll use your project name. And then click OK. Now I've got it set to where it's in source control. Is it actually in TFS yet?
No.
No.
Push it.
I tell you, I can't keep things open to save my life. I wanted to show you. in my 151 folder. If I look at my code, it's still empty. Now, in Visual Studio, when I right-click and choose Check In, I do have that check-in option available on the menus, but I think this is where it can get messed up. Because remember, again, it's going to check in whatever you have selected over here in Solution Explorer. So if you don't have your whole solution selected when you use the menu, you can end up with inconsistent results. So that's why I am just a real creature of habit. I always use my Solution Explorer, and I always right-click so I can be sure that I'm at the place I need to be. And I check it in, give it a comment, initial development, and click check in. My number of items should be reasonable. If it's only checking in one, I've probably got a problem, unless that was really what I was planning on doing. And then I should see that it was successfully checked in. Now, when I go to TFS through the portal, refresh, I should see my actual project there. In the portal, if I click on the solution, it'll give me the option to open it in Visual Studio. So you can actually at home come here and click open in Visual Studio, and that will create that same connection as if you go to Team Explorer Connect. So remember, TFS gives you a lot of options just like Visual Studio. Questions for right now? Big day for us, trying to get back on track, so don't be surprised if you feel that way. But you are welcome to stay in here because so far they haven't stuck another class in here in between classes. So I'll be here. My other class starts at 11:30. So you can hang out if you want and work or get out of here. I hope everybody has a good weekend. I'm already ready for it. Did it let you do attendance? Did it ever ask you anything?
Nope.
Ah.
Has anybody said anything about their Visual Studio account getting ready to end? I got mine through OTC. It says mine goes away on this Sunday.
Really?
Yeah. So I downloaded it during the summer semester. It says that.
Did you use your product key to activate? Because if you don't put in your product key, it just gives you like a 90-day trial. But your product key will be on that site. Well, it's really bad because the install doesn't ask you for it. And so it's real easy to not get it put in. I hate that it doesn't ask you for it.
So, can I ask a question now?
Use that, you can ask me.
Well, you said that you asked me. Are we good for that?
I'm sure, but the product's on there, and all you do is just ask for it.
One thing. And I was going to use your email. Well, if there's something you can keep to, I'll check it. See what I've got. Yeah, the whole thing. So all of them. Don't go real quick when you get started with them. You'll be surprised at how fast they go. Sure, where is that? Okay.
Good weekend. Good luck.
The CIS151.
He's got like a 550 Ti.
Tell me how it is though in there. At all last year?
I definitely.
Good.
Because
I hope so.
I thought this was a PC, it's like you could run it stuff.
you got here, that was here. Uh-huh. I should be eventually.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Hang on, and we can take a look at it too if you want.
Yeah, I was gonna go back and watch the Zoom, I got lost. Because you're asking about the Zoom.
Yeah, it'll take me a while though, because I don't have like anything set up yet. For our classrooms and stuff, so it could be a little while before I get it out there. It will be instantaneous. Look at this right here. We need those other properties, so we've got location. We're missing some.
This is property.
I've never seen one. So let's move just that one into that other one. So let's just get rid of it. But I don't know. Location. Different than everybody else. Are you sure you submitted one of those forms about that? Control.
Like this is the
Right. line, something about it. Yep, that's the one. Hey. That is not the running stop. Isn't that weird? Soon, something else will be here. Still talking about PictureBox, yeah, so that's why we can take this out of right now. Maybe so long to take that. So I'm going to play my PictureBox. Oh, yeah. I like kept thinking that I have one, and it took me a long time, and then I was like, yeah, I do have it on that old computer.
One of the teachers last semester gave me, as we were leaving for COVID, was like, I've got these extra computers and they're wiped clean, and I got one, and I was like, yes, and I got this set up, and it was like Ethernet or DSL, and I was like, I was like, I need a Wi-Fi.
And so I'm sure that's it, but it's so
Thank you.
little. I'm like, are you sure that's
Thank
it?
you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
So you're having a good semester so far, getting started?
So far, yeah.
Good.
So I'm doing 13 credits, so still got a 4.0.
Good job, great.
You take it easy, thank you.
So here's what we should need. I don't know why it's a little different. Because we need to declare our PictureBox. Mine has the this dot on the PictureBox declaration, variable declaration, which is simple. It's just little teeny things like that when we're stealing that code from that other module that can kind of be picky for us.
Yesterday, I can't believe I left. I actually forgot to turn in my directions.
No problem, you bet.
Pull that up, I feel a lot better.
Okay. So just put that in there. You should be able to copy it. The only thing that should be different would be the name of your image, since yours is a little different. Let's see.
Well, thankfully, I did end up saving it. Is that okay if I still turn that in on campus?
Oh, sure, that's fine.
Again, I'm really
That's
sorry
fine,
about
not a problem. It's just getting used to everything. That's why we do that assignment.
that.
Oh, yeah. No, they shouldn't know what we're in. Okay.